It's recording. Want to share screen?
My screen share I don't think is actually working just because, Linux lights. Um, yeah, it's not letting me select anything. It's pretty small though. It's just like one file pretty much. So,
Okay, then I will share screen. What do you think? Why do you think it's broken?
I've just never really done screen sharing that much and haven't
Mm-hmm.
bothered to fix it.
So,
Probably like some portals thing or whatever.
do you want like me to send you a link to my see how I have it set up?
You just talking in your, yeah.
What is it? It's the desktop or desktop portal, XDG portal. I think pretty much. I think this is pretty much. Well, do you use Home Manager?
Yeah.
So, do you see my screen?
Yep.
So it's basically just XDG portal enabled too. Now,
Yep. I got that in mind. I think there's just something else going on with it.
and I also have this config common default asterisk,
Mm-hmm.
and you might need some extra portals depending on what desktop environment you have.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to my Flake as well. It's not super up to date in Git, but it should have like all the relevant stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do I get your thing?
The config parts library
Mm-hmm.
or the Flake.
The
I
config
will send
parts
you a
here.
link to that as
I
well.
I have it in my history.
Perfect.
So let me see. This I am close. That's a bit annoying. I thought that this was possible. Okay. Okay. GitHub repo clone that. Uh, I'm cloning it bare because I use git worktree add
Ah,
attach, and then I'm putting it in worktrees under just config parts, and then I go there. It's a bit of a hassle, but didn't bother optimizing it, and then we can switch to main and open an editor here. See what you got. Read me.
there you go.
Config parts. Modularly construct NixOS and home manager configurations.
Yeah, and you may recognize this first part of the README. I sort of copy pasted from Flake parts and just made it my own for this.
Ah, I see. Config parts provides Flake parts modules that represent the arguments to the standard configuration constructors, the NixOS system, home manager configuration, the configurations. So here's a comment. This is a Flake specific function. It's only available in the Nix packages lib that is on the Flake. Did you know that?
Okay. I
Here's a
didn't.
proof.
I did notice that like it doesn't work if you import Nix packages. You have to get it
Exactly.
directly from the input.
From
So
the
that
Flake
makes a lot of
output.
sense.
Yeah, see, here's just Nix REPL with the Nix packages. This is not a Flake.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not a Flake because of the way I import it, right? I do this.
Hmm.
So if I do lib, there will be no NixOS system here.
So what's the non-flakes way of constructing configuration then?
That's a great question. I think it's like an import of the NixOS lib. It's not on lib, it's an import of the NixOS lib. That's something like let NixOS equals import haba nix package sorry nix package nix packages this way NixOS
Oh, interesting.
NixOS. What's going on here? It's lazy. That's what's going on. Is this
Gotta love the Nix eval
happening?
times.
Yeah, I don't. It's a lambda. Okay, it's a lambda. Maybe it needs like inherit lib. Unexpected argument lib. Maybe it needs to be called with nothing? Oh, so apparently, so this thing seems to be like the entry, so NixOS, modules, right?
Oh yeah, that's literally the constructor. Okay.
Maybe? No, it's not. See, it says unexpected argument modules. But when I call it with nothing, it says, what did it say? Didn't it say something here? Didn't we try to call it with nothing? It's
Yeah.
NixOS config was not found
Let's
in
see.
NixOS
Let's see.
search path.
It
Oh,
looks like
it's
the
in the,
arguments are configuration, system, and special args, but they all have defaults. So I guess that's why it worked with nothing.
maybe it's, hold on, maybe it's NixOS lib equals something like, import, NixOS. Oh, you know what? There's another syntax for this. NixOS/lib. See that? Nix packages / NixOS/lib. Maybe it's this.
Nice.
Nix packages.
And
Needs
this
to
is just
be.
channel syntax, right? This isn't like part of the
What's
flake
happening here?
registry or anything.
What the heck? I'm not in the repo. NixOS lib equals import Nix packages NixOS lib. What we get here? What did we get? A lambda again? But this time, if you call this with nothing, we get this eval test and run test, which is, again, is not what we're looking for. So it is somewhere in the manual, and it's somewhere in the code as well. Let's go Nix packages. I'm sorry, I want to know as well.
Yeah,
You
me
think
too.
so?
That's
It's a waste of
I
time here.
I switched on to Flakes probably like day 2 or 3 of using NixOS, so definitely a gap in my knowledge.
So here's NixOS lib default. I think it's actually this one, eval config,
Config.
that we're looking for, but I also don't understand why this wouldn't be it. Oh, is eval config eval yeah. So why didn't this work? NixOS lib. Did I miss something? Because see, it inherits in eval modules here. We
Hmm.
also have these, right? But we have that, and maybe I missed that somehow.
There
Let's
was
look at
that evaluation warning. Maybe that was like
oh,
overriding where that output would have been.
hiding it. NixOS lib. Sorry, I'm not in the REPL anymore. NixOS lib next package lib nixos lib dot. Oh, nothing. Oh, I need to call it actual nixos lib. Let's call it nl equals nixos lib. Call it nothing and nl. There we go. That I think that you're
Nice.
right about that. So here is the eval modules. If we do this with modules equals empty, we probably get like and then try to access. So let's do like configuration equals nl eval modules equals empty. We'll probably get configuration dot config will be empty. How can it be empty?
I I think that's just the base eval modules. I think the
It's the
libnixos
base.
system is like a wrapper around that, right?
Sure, but why would it not include the all the NixOS modules?
I think all the base modules get imported as part of that wrapper.
Where is the wrapper?
Good question.
Let's look at eval config. Here's eval config. Is this what we need to get?
That looks right.
Doesn't. Okay. Eval config equals import nix packages nixos lib eval config .nix. What do we get? A lambda we can call with nothing. See, it needs something.
Wants the modules argument.
Ah, modules. Okay, so configuration equal config modules. Okay, configuration dot config. Please tell me I didn't say.
There we
Okay, there
go.
we go. Okay,
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done it that way, just by importing directly.
it kind of sucks.
Gotta love flakes.
Um, yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. For me,
So,
like
mm-hmm.
this was just an ergonomics thing. I think I had a bit of a conversation in the thread that I posted this about where because in the dendritic pattern as you sort of have it,
I
you
meant, I meant. Sorry, I do would love for you to share your motivation, and actually, I guess it's pretty obvious, right? Like we just want things that we do often to like be obvious and nice, right?
exactly just don't want to have to call the function a million times with the same arguments.
But what I meant is like, do you want to talk about flakes and what they're good for and what they're not very good for?
Oh yeah, sure. Um, that's actually something because whenever I see somebody talk about like do a I've been using NixOS for 6 months. Here's my experience. That's something that always comes up, right? Is flakes are confusing. What is a flake?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is probably just branding and like I think as soon as you give something a fancy sounding name like that, people expect it to be like something bigger or maybe more than what flakes actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, flakes are just like inputs, outputs, right? It's an easy way to lock your inputs, version control it, and then map those to outputs.
Mm-hmm.
Just the base functional programming concept. So, like, whether that looks like a function or it's an attribute set with the inputs and the outputs, same thing to me, right?
Okay, so flakes. Sorry for like. I guess you're right, but here's the like what I got from flakes so far. Okay, there's this pure evaluation mode by default. I think you can do this on non-Plex as well, but with some flag. To achieve that, it copies to store before evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
which is a downside. Did you know that? Your entire repo gets copied to the store before evaluation.
Yeah, yeah, and then
Where
like pretty much all the internal paths that you reference are relative to that root store path.
right.
Are you saying that's a downside just because of like duplicated files on your system, or is
Yeah,
there a bit more to that?
it's an operation. It's a file system operation that occurs just because you want to evaluate some Nix code. Like you don't when you do Nix build, right? Like this foo bar,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't happen.
Okay. I kind
Okay.
of figured that was like just the Nix thing, and that's sort of how they achieve purity with everything. So again, like that's sort of my gap in knowledge from
Mm-hmm.
using flakes pretty much from day one.
Okay. So they also provide the CLI that
Hmm.
otherwise you don't get. So that's nice. And like, so you can do something like a Nix flake check. And it's like an idiomatic way to like check a project. That's cool.
Yep. I use Nix Flake Show all the time.
There you go. All that stuff. Um, and they pin inputs.
Yes. For you. That's like the nice part, right? Is because you can do the manual hash, like nar hash or whatever else,
Yeah, you
where
can do that. You can use an
you
input
download it,
pin.
tells you, hey, the
Mhm.
hash didn't match, and you update.
Right. And you can use an input pinner if you find yourself doing that a lot and you have many inputs. You can use nishtamal, nishtamal, npins, niv, and others. They are all input pinners. And Flex have its own input pinning mechanism. But in addition to its own input pinning mechanism, it has a feature that none of these other input pinners have. Because all these input pinners are just input pinners. But flakes have this concept of like when your inputs can have their own inputs. So actually, let me go from the other side. If you do something like inputs dot foo equals URL equals GitHub something, right? And then you do flake false. You with me? Did you crash? Where's my phone? What's going on here?
Hey, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect.
Can hear myself a little bit as well.
Um, might be a headphones thing. One sec.
Mm-hmm. I think it's doing a pretty good job at canceling that. Can you see my screen still or?
Yep.
Okay. So in Flakes, when you do inputs foo URL and Flake false, then it behaves like any other input pinner. You probably never did that, right?
Um, no, I don't think so.
So if you do that, it behaves just like any other input pinner. In which in this case, in your like outputs, right? You'd get foo here, right? You're following this?
Yep.
You get foo here. Foo in here is a store path. Okay?
Okay, so you would have to call import on foo then.
Right. If you want Nix code from it, that's not always the case. But if you
Oh,
want
true.
Nix code from it, you have to import that Nix code. And if that Nix code needs stuff like lib, like Nix packages lib, for example, then you need to pass it to that Nix code, right? And that's like the classic Nix way of like composing Nix from different repositories, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you do bar URL equals something and you do flake true, which is the default, then what happens is that bars flake.nix and flake.lock are evaluated. Their inputs, right? Their inputs are fetched as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like added to your log file. And the outputs function is called, and you and then bar is an adder set already with, right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just gives
with
you the
the
outputs from that flake.
outputs, right? And this whole thing is not a good idea, if you ask me.
Okay, I've been seeing a couple people on the discourse recently talking about, I think, sort of this and what like Flake's shortcomings are. To me, that's like is kind of is what you get for depending on external packages, though. No, is that you have to like recursively fetch their dependencies.
Well, sure, but there are alternatives. So everything like is considered, like, if you don't know anything else, so you'd say, okay, yeah, that's just. But and also, and I can tell you what like the alternatives are. But also, there is a case where this is like would seem appropriate, and that is the case where you really, really want reproducible software. You really, really want upstream's log file to apply.
Mm-hmm.
You want the entire log file, and then you like, okay, this is exactly the thing that ups, well, like not bit for bit, right? That's not the level of reproducibility that Nix provides, right? It's more like the inputs are hashed, right? So these are the
Yeah.
exact same build instructions that upstream are working with, and it will be built the same way on your machine. Whether the result will be the same is more like how reliable the build process is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like, you could make an argument that that's sometimes desirable, but when you're trying to compose software, and like if you end up doing inputs.nix packages dot follows, right, this
Yep.
Nix packages, then this defeats the whole purpose of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Because this serves complete reproducibility. This defeats that. So if you are doing something like this, instead what you try to do is do that, and then import the Nix code in that repository, if they provide vanilla Nix entry points at all, because some don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can do the usual Nix packages pattern of usage, that is something like package equals pkgs.call package, and it'll be something like foo, the store path, right? Up with like pkgs foo.nix, something like this, and then and then that thing gets built with this PKG's instance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this to me is like more idiomatic. It's more flexible. You can use this in an overlay. It avoids the whole problem of like the entire inputs tree of bar ends up in your log file.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Because you can also then switch out which packages you're passing, like conditionally, instead of having to commit to a single instance of Nix packages in your input, right?
Right. Notably, you can use overlays to override the like whatever depth dependency of this package you want.
Mm-hmm.
Overlays can have that power, right? And with
Yeah,
this,
sometimes
you
too
don't.
much power.
Right. And with this, you don't get any of that nice overlay stuff. With this, bar gets to instantiate its own PKGs, and then you have no control over that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this whole conversation is like what flakes are good for and what they're not, as they don't play nice with Nix packages, idioms. And now I think we can probably continue to what this project is. Because like the output from this in terms of our conversation, I think, is like me asking, please don't provide things as flake outputs at all. Some would say, you know what, as in addition to flake outputs, please provide things as vanilla Nix files. I would
Yes.
say, please don't provide things as flake outputs at all, because it provides no benefit to your user. Like zero. When you explain to your user how to use your repo, your project, tell them to do flake false and show them how to import your flake parts module. Something like imports equals right, like config parts, you called it, and then it'll be like something like flake or modules flake, something like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I can see that benefit. It is interesting hearing that from you, though, just because, like, you're the dendritic guy, right? And I know in, like, that whole write-up you say, doesn't need to be flakes, doesn't need to be flake parts, but,
Mm-hmm.
like, 99% of the time you see people posting, like, dendritic stuff, it's flakes and flake parts.
Yep. Right. I can understand how that's funny. Uh, and that's the problem with flakes. They provide some value, and then they have some drawbacks, and then so I want to use the good parts and not use the parts that are to have more drawbacks than they provide benefits.
Yeah, makes sense.
And also, it's not like I always knew this stuff. It's quite recent that I started doing this. If you look at my infra repo, you'll be able to see some recent commits that just turn this into flake false, that into flake false, and like maybe 9 of these commits.
Since doing that, have you, like, had any benefits besides, like, this is just a cleaner setup and, like, a more correct way to do that?
I didn't experience any drawbacks, well, except for that I needed to like ask, for example, I asked Nix Vim for such support, and graciously Matt Sturgeon actually implemented that. It wasn't trivial, but
Just having the non-flake
yeah,
outputs?
exactly. And Stylix doesn't have it yet. So the answer is no, I did not have any drawbacks.
What about, like, benefits?
The benefits there are that my lock file is smaller. I don't have to like make sure I do follows like this, or sometimes it's more like I don't know, some dev dependency which has nothing to do with my usage, and then I could do the empty string. You know what happens when you do this empty string?
No, I've never seen that.
So you can do that, and what happens, you'll never guess, is that input ends up being self.
Weird.
Instead of like something that has to do with this, no. It's just self. And you'd think, oh, maybe it ends up being null. Or maybe it ends up being something that when you try to fetch it, it throws. No, it's self. So yeah,
What a
it's very
weird
weird.
default.
Uh, yeah. So that's a benefit. That the entire tree is gone because it has no. It doesn't read. It doesn't read the flakenix. It doesn't read the flake lock of that input.
Yeah.
There's no such
It
thing.
only
It's
pins
flat.
your top level inputs.
Exactly. That's what I want.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what I'm asking of library authors. Don't provide flake outputs. There's no point. Provide vanilla nix. We can get into the conversation of, okay, what if I depend on some other stuff that I fetch and it's not from Nix packages, right?
Yeah.
So you can just fetch them. You can like demand that your users fetch them for you and like pass them on to you. You can fetch them yourself using eval time fetchers, which is totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. I think, especially if you really want a specific rev, specific tarball, fine, just fetch it at eval time. If you want to give your users a way to override that, if they really want to, then ask them for like an argument that only defaults to that particular pin. And you can see such things in, for example, that recent Nix Vim change that I asked for, and somehow they've obliged.
That's nice.
Stylix is an example where they do something funny, where they just if you use them as flake false, they use flake compact to just read their entire lock flake lock, and that calls reads the flakenix and calls the output function and passing in a like a pure Nix implementation of fetching those inputs for them.
Yeah.
It works.
It does work. It's a roundabout way to get back to the default though.
And um but yeah, there's some details, right? But like you got the big picture here.
Yep. There's, always infinite details with Nix, I
Right.
find.
All right, so um so it's a question, this Nixos system, it's not only like it's actually different. It has some different. If you look at the Nix packages flake.nix, that's where this
Mm-hmm.
is defined. It's not even in a subdirectory, anything. It's right in the flake.nix, and it adds some more like configuration on top of your NixOS that is flake specific. So, it's actually a kind of a decision. What do you give your users? because there's more than one way to instantiate a NixOS.
Yes. I've seen people that totally just don't use the NixOS system or anything like that. They wrote their own wrapper around eval modules, and that to me is just like way too much, but it's nice that you can.
But right, but that's an extreme. Like, because you can use the Nix OS wrapper, the vanilla NixOS wrapper for that, the one we discovered where how to get a few moments ago. You can use
Yeah.
that, right? You don't have to write your own wrapper eval modules. So there's like
Yeah, Nix is
this.
like good about exposing all the levels of that function.
Mm-hmm. And the home manager one, I don't think the flake one. I think the flake one is exactly the same as the vanilla one. And now the remaining conversation is about like what the API for this is. So here I would say like flake false, right? Of course, this is
Yeah.
your project. Sorry, not this one. That one. I'm not trying to force you into doing anything.
No, it's good to see.
All right. Nix OS.
Yeah, so it's a super like simple concept where it's just instead of your output, like you manually call the constructor and pass the args, you just
Mm-hmm.
define the args as another flake output
Of
so that they
course.
can be merged and all the other good module system stuff. And then I'll just
Mm-hmm.
map attrs, right? And then construct the configurations.
Right. And if you look, if you look, my infra, you should be able to find something like configurations NixOS that has this. Here's what it looks like here: options, configurations, NixOS, lib make option, type, lib type stays the address of, lib type submodule. Now here it's I think a little bit different than what you did. It's options dot module singular,
Mm-hmm.
because it's lib make option type lib types deferred module.
Yep.
So like there's no need to provide a list is like less ergonomic. This is more ergonomic than a list,
Um,
because
I
this
think
can
that's
take a
probably
singular.
personal preference. For me, I was just trying to like keep it as unopinionated as possible. So the modules I wrote are literally one to one the arguments that that constructor function expects, right?
I get that. I get that. My take on it is that we are writing options for that map to a function. So when we even though we map to a function, we live in option land. So we should probably take advantage of what option land offers us.
What do you mean by that?
This, for example, that this can be singular. Yes, it's different. It's different from modules plural that is a list, but you know what deferred module is. You know that like it has merge semantics,
Yeah.
so you can provide multiple values for this in different modules, and they will all merge into one module that imports all those modules.
Yeah, if you wanted to define all the modules with the same name, right? So that's I think uh just like something to bring up here too is that
Just to make
I
sure,
know
sorry, just to make sure
sorry?
I'll show you the usage of it, just to make sure we're on the same page of how this is, what it looks like in the usage is this: configurations, NixOS, whatever name, and then module equals, and this is an NixOS module.
Yep.
And this can be defined in multiple, again and again in multiple files, right? Like I can
Yep.
open another, okay. So to me, if we were to like, okay, critique this library that you're making, this is a more idiomatic API. It's a very small difference, right? Because if it was modules plural in a list, I would have to, here's the exact difference. I would have to do this.
Yep.
And this is slightly less, so I choose that.
Fair enough.
That's it. All right.
Yep. So yeah, I guess beyond that, the only extra things that this would provide is like it gives you the output name just as a default, right? Because you can do the thing with submodule inside of a attrs type where it just like gives you the name. So I forward that along to all these modules, which is just like convenient to have. Like I have it written there. You can just set networking host name and just makes it really easy.
Yeah.
And then the other part is if you go down, I think like 2 headings in the README there, you can also just set like globals. So I also provide one more down, I think. Yeah, there. So there's the just the args with the tick, the prime. So you can just provide global stuff there. And those still have access to all the same arguments that normal modules would. So you could set like networking host name equals the output name and write that in one spot so that you don't have to continuously sync those two for like every new config.
The benefit of this is that you get the name, that you can
Yeah,
use the
yeah,
name,
yeah.
right?
You can use the name and you can set it globally as well. So I tried
Huh.
to illustrate here. If you also look at the home manager configuration args right below it, output user, output host, there's output name in there as well. I just didn't write it, but they're available at both levels. So
Uh-huh.
like you can see on line 130 there, modules has like it's just a function form module, and then in the home manager thing, the function is around the args themselves, not the modules inside the args. So that lets you do like
What?
line 142. That's sort of one of my favorite things about this is that you can just say like for every new home manager configuration that gets constructed, check if there's a NixOS configuration with this output host name, like from the
Uh-huh.
home manager output name. And if there is, like just grab the packages from there so that you don't have to manually import packages every time you construct a new home configuration. And that has the added benefit too of just keeping it in sync with your host so that you don't duplicate Nix packages
Uh-huh.
more than you need to.
Uh-huh. Okay. So there's so first, just like general kind of commendation, if I may. Clever
Yeah.
stuff here. I think it shows that you understand how to use the module system, which is really nice. But like I can't like do think of all these things at once. So how about I just start with one thing, which is like this kind of feature where,
Mm-hmm.
or like the the use case where you want to use the name of your configuration, right?
Yeah.
Like the canonical place to set the name of your configuration in this mental model, in this API, is here, right? And this is a good example of something I don't have ironed out in my because look at what I'm doing here. What is this? The name. And
Yep.
what is this? The name again.
Exactly.
So if I was to think of a way to like do this better than what I currently have, and I was to for a moment ignore what you did, because so how does actually not ignore? How does this work? What's going on here? You have this prime thing. So this
Yeah.
uh
So yeah, if you just go to
module.
the
Where is
NixOS,
it? This one?
uh, NixOS or Home Manager, they're
Oh,
both
they're
kind of
all
set up the
actually.
same way.
They're not really Nix. They're not. Okay, so here's a little piece of feedback. This file layout is kind of suggestive that this file is a home manager module, this file is an NixOS module, and this I wouldn't know. So when I look at these and see that they're not, that they're actually Flake parts modules, I kind of say, oh, I'm disappointed, and I understand that I cannot. This is like not vanilla Nix project, but we already talked about that part, right?
Yeah, and I think
So
too, like top of the README says
yeah,
Flake
yeah,
parts modules, right?
of course, of course. Just, just so this is a comment about like the what idiomatically the layout of the files suggests.
Yeah, so how would you clarify that then?
I would, if they are Flake parts modules, I would put them under a directory called Flake modules, and then each, the one that has to do with NixOS, and then the one that has to do with Home Manager. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay, so
NixOS is probably going to be the
NixOS.
one to look at here.
Okay, options Flake. NixOS configuration is prime. Make option. It's a list of a list of deferred module. A list of.
Yeah, so I guess you could do the module merging
Can
thing here
I
as well.
just get back
But
to the README and look at this configuration art?
this
Is
is
that
probably
what?
a good place to it is a list, but this is
But
probably a
that's
good
not.
place to use that
Mhm.
module merging there.
Okay, this is what we looked at, right? Using the output
Yep.
name. Okay. Okay, so you already found an improvement where this could be just a deferred module on the list.
Mhm.
Okay.
But where that's used is if you go down to the actual config for the next option that's defined, it just imports. It's literally it just passes that output directly to the imports of this module.
I see. I see. This is like, oh, I see. Okay.
And
I
then
think, okay,
right on the line above
just,
too, that name, the
uh-huh.
lazy atters of submodule, and it takes the name argument.
Yeah,
That's where the output name comes from.
that's right.
So you can see at the bottom of that definition, I just passed that to the underscore module.args option.
Yeah. A little, I don't know if you know this, but like if you do, if you do, if you do foo, like, I don't know, like
Yeah, it
args,
doesn't pass name.
it does, like,
It's so
how many,
annoying.
okay.
It's like you wrote extra code to make it worse.
Yeah, that took me a moment to realize that was annoying.
Yeah, no, I probably wasted a good hour on that one at one point.
Okay, so I get what's going on here. So it's like, in order to do this, you'd have to um I think what we're looking for really look, so does that mean, let me see that again. Does that mean it injects that name into
Yeah, if you go to, like, the bottom of that option definition there, it should be there.
That, right?
Yep, exactly.
One place, and it's just module args. So you'll be able to use this anywhere in your NixOS, in any NixOS module.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, that's a good feature, I think. I wonder though whether this. No, yeah, I think that's also the correct implementation. Yep,
Nice.
good stuff. What is the name? I'm just thinking the correct what is the correct attribute? Uh, I think it should be like, because it is also by default used as networking hostname. By the way, it's that's not here, is it?
No, it's not. That I don't actually do that
You don't do that.
for you. That's just,
Okay.
like, an example of how you could use that output. Because again, I was trying to keep this, like, it doesn't change any default behavior,
You know, you
totally
can.
unopinionated.
Okay, so I would. Okay, so I would call this hostname. I would call actually the 2 words, I suppose, because that's what it looks like here. And I would actually do this with make default. Because if you do it with make default, I think it's fine because the user would be able to override that without a problem. I think
Yeah,
this is desirable. That's like that's the magnitude that I would go with such a library. I think this is great.
yeah. No, that's definitely like, I could go either way on that. I just sort of figured since I have this global thing where you can just write config into everything,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's easy enough to do that yourself. So I just sort of defaulted to not having it so that there wasn't potentially anything surprising. But yeah, absolutely. Either way, I think is fine on that.
Okay, so that's that. What else should we look at?
I
Uh,
guess on your bottom pane there, another
mm,
sort of interesting thing is that underscore constructor option is right. Like in the
uh-huh.
README, I say like lib nixos system, but technically you could configure that to any function you want. And again, that's all through the module system, so you can do that
Li- I
conditionally.
don't.
However,
Why isn't it? Why isn't it
um, I do
default?
it in the config part, not
Mm-hmm.
in the options part. So if you go to the bottom there, you'll see it checks the inputs of your flake and says if there's one called Nix packages, get it from there.
Okay. This is where we want to. This is where we want to like. I think. I think something like, if your input has. Uh, Hold on. Let me think about this. I want to do the non-flake thing first. Nix packages. Nix packages.
Yeah, so you would want to
Inputs.
change this to the import syntax we were talking about earlier.
Here's here's one thought. If 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 you have if your inputs has Nix packages and it's an adder set, then it defaults to this.
Yeah, that's probably some good extra safety there.
If it has Nix packages and it's not an adder set, then you can do the import for the vanilla NixOS constructor.
Yeah, you could like even check if it's a path at that point too.
It
And
is.
then like if it's not an attr set or a path, then like throw or something like that.
Sure. I don't think it can be anything else. But as far as good code goes, that sounds great.
Yeah, and then too, if you just want to see like where this all comes together, it's at like the very bottom of that file there. Um, it'll like
Just,
loop over all of the configuration args and then call the constructor. Or it does a little
yep.
more. It like filters out the constructor argument, and if there were any like omitted arguments, then
Mm-hmm.
it filters those.
Before we get to that, this should not be like, I think this should, why is it underscore constructor?
Just to signify that this isn't an argument that's going to be passed to your constructor, or like whenever we're calling that function, this gets removed from that. So right now I was just
Hold on,
filtering.
hold on, hold on. I think I understand now what I did not understand a moment ago. This should not be a NixOS option. This should be a flag parts option.
It is a flake parts option. It couldn't be a NixOS option, right? Because this needs to be
Oh,
called to
config
create the
flake.
NixOS config.
Uh,
This is where it gets confusing, having the nested module systems, right? Because we got the NixOS modules inside the flake parts modules.
mhm.
So if you keep going through the options there, you'll see like all the normal arguments you would pass to the libnixOS system, and modules is one of those options there.
But so you're saying it's underscore because it does not get passed into what?
LibnixOS system, or whatever you
Um,
configure this constructor as. So there's this attribute set, right? And then you put whatever arguments you would normally put, like pass to libnixOS system in this attribute set. And then if you want a
mhm.
different constructor than lib attribute or NixOS system, then you could configure it through this.
Okay,
If you
okay.
scroll that pane
Ho-
down just a little bit, I think it would make a bit more sense because you can see it in context.
No, I think I get it. But I'm like my attention is drawn to this thing.
Okay.
This this args prime. Something doesn't intuitively sit right with me that we need a prime at all. This like the concept of a thing I want everywhere in all my NixOS configurations. I don't see like I can already do that.
Just by importing the module in all the configurations.
That's right.
So this also lets you configure non-module things, right? So in that home manager configuration, packages is an argument passed when constructing that
Show
configuration.
me what is packages?
In the
PKGs?
pane you were just in, the top pane, line
Mm-hmm.
142.
This?
Yep. So you can see like when you would normally call home manager configuration, like to construct it.
It's a special arg, right? That's what
No, it's not a
I
special
suppose
arg.
a special it's an additional it's a wrapper arg, right?
This is just a default home manager configuration argument, right? So
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sure in
It's
your
a
flake
wrapper
where you've,
arg. It's like an
what do you mean by
argument
wrapper?
of the um a wrapper, an eval modules wrapper.
Yes, yes.
This is an arg of the wrapper.
Yep. Just like
Okay,
specific to home manager.
I see, I see. And you're saying if we want to pass such wrapper args, so there's two things. There's passing such wrapper args at all, and there's passing such wrapper args to all of the configurations.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we start with passing such wrapper args at all, I think we should start with each of them should have, there should be an option for each of them. Is that what's the case here?
That is the case.
And okay, I see that you've picked up on that there's a type for this. And this therefore just does like because it's here, it does like pass them to all part of this
Yes.
equation. I see what you're saying. And okay.
And then beyond that, just sort of from an ergonomic standpoint, I think it's nice to not have to import that module every single time. If there's something that you truly want to be global, which I think a lot of people do for like their Nix packages config, like allow unfree or something like that, that you really want to be global, you can just put it in here and you don't have to remember to import it whenever you make a new config.
So that part I wouldn't do. But hold just a moment. I want to like easy feedback is like this. I would name it differently. I would name it, so this lives under, what is the path for this? The path flake dot home configuration args. So you saw what I had, right? Like configurations, not flake, configurations dot the class of the configuration.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I kind of intuitively, this is where I decided this would live. But this does not leave place for where to set defaults.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have to, because the like your host name is part of the output there, you would have to do it for a specific one. So this would, like, to sort of translate it to what you have here, it would be sort of if you had a configurations.nixos.star. And then like that
Yeah.
dot star you just import into all the other configurations.
So it could be configurations dot, yeah, hold on, but I'm still because I'm not convinced these. So okay, so can we take a look at what these args are? Like, for example, PKGs is one of them.
Yeah.
Um,
There are links in both those files to like where those arguments are defined upstream if you want to look there, or all the options are just there as well.
so what do we have? We have yeah, there's system, there's PKGs. Anything else?
Yep, there should be a bunch of them below that.
Base modules, extra args.
And these are just all the ones that upstream defines.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Okay, so setting them at all is easy, right? Because, for example, in my case, what I would recommend something like configurations.nix. There's module, and there's
Mm-hmm.
the other things, right? So that's what you have as well, right? PKGs equals,
Yep.
right? And everything else. And if there's something that can merge, that they can have the correct type for merging. So that's the easy part, and that's already implemented.
Yep.
The reason I think it should not be under Flake is because Flake is for Flake outputs, and I think we should leave it up to the user to decide whether they want this under Flake outputs. I think it is
Yeah,
convenient that it's under.
that's
If,
actually I
mhm,
didn't really, like, think through that when I was writing this initially, because I 'cause I'm still a little new to flake parts. So
mhm.
I kinda thought flake was just where you put everything, but you're saying that if you have a separate top level output, it's not gonna be, um, part of your flake outputs, but it is still accessible through the rest of the flake modules.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Flake
so that
is
that would definitely be an
specifically for
improvement.
putting stuff into the Flake outputs, which is not necessarily what we want.
Yeah, no,
It
it'd
is.
actually be really nice if those were hidden.
Mhm, right. It is though. So like because like because I can do nix repl dot, and I can do nixos configurations dot config, and like dot one of them, and then dot config, and then I just explore this stuff.
Yep.
That's nice. And like I I kind of wanted to try out this kind of feature, this repo feature where I'd be able to do something like just something like I would have a Flake output called config, and it would maybe not even config, maybe configuration, and then I would be able to. This would be the result of the Flake parts evaluation, so that I could do like dot config dot, well, not Flake, because that one I already have as Flake outputs, but anything else, and just explore my Flake parts configuration.
That would definitely be interesting. That was something I kinda just surface level was looking at when I wrote this, is that since these are all deferred modules, it's a lot easier to, like, inspect the pre-evaluated configuration through the REPL or however else. So, like, having something like that would be really interesting.
And that's achievable, right? I can
Mhm.
just go ahead and do that. Um,
Yeah, no, that's like you get it for free with deferred module, right?
wait, not even. Oh, so let's try to like just do that for a moment. Here's my infra, and here's flake.nix. Here is how do I find what I want here? This is the make flake. So this returns flake outputs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what if we do let I this returns flake outputs. I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into flake parts, actually. Flake parts lib. So let's do something here. Let's do break, okay? And then do nix flake show debugger ignore try. Okay, I reached the breakpoint. Inputs dot flake parts dot lib. What does it have? Eval flake module. Hmm?
Sounds like what you want.
I bet it is. So let configuration equals inputs dot flake parts dot lib dot eval flake module. I don't know what it takes. Do you know what it takes?
No, I don't. There's some function that'll tell you what the arguments are to a lambda. I can't remember what it is.
Here. We call it with empty, and I get a throw. Oh, it's like it's an internal internal. Okay, okay. Okay. Work trees, flake, parts. My completion, I don't know how to use it yet. Good, well yet. Wait, what am I doing? Flake. Oh, it's the okay. I got it eventually. Eval flake eval flake module equals R I bet args is like module of yeah. Do you think args.modules is somewhere in here? I don't see it, frankly. Oh, I think my editor is blocking. No? What happened? Where's modules? Module. Where does that come from? What is this? Module. Module? Can you read this stuff? Let's see how it's called. Lake module. Okay. Args module. What's args? Ah,
Oh, that's
make
just the
flake
normal make flake. Yeah.
is args and module, and this has the same signature. What do you know? Could have guessed it. Okay, so I just take this invocation, right? I take this invocation, cut it. Let configuration equals that invocation in adder set. These are actual flake outputs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And now we want a flake output that is inherit configuration. And we want configuration dot, I don't know, config flake. Processed flake. Eval config processed flake. Eval config process flake. That's it, right? Eval config
Yeah.
process flake. Config processed flake. I think this is it. Let's try that. Nix REPL dot. No. Attribute config is missing. Isn't that what they did here?
Oh, I think you're still calling make flake, not eval flake module.
Oh. Am I? Sorry. Good call. Ah.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what you wanted.
Configuration. Seems like I have all the usual things, and configuration dot config dot. It's all the stuff. Per system dot. I think I cannot step into this.
There's flake as well, and I think you should be able to step into that, right?
Yeah, but that's already kind of my flake outputs anyway. As kind of before processing.
Yeah, you get the whole list of modules, right, instead of it being merged. It would be nice if, we could look at per system too, though.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's another flake parts internal function that would let us do that.
Okay. So I'll consider whether I want to actually commit this, but we had a point with this, which is this probably should not be in Flake. You have acknowledged that.
Yep.
And my design, right? My design choice of like configurations dot uh because yes, like the default Flake schema and what these tools expect is the output being called NixOS configurations. Sure,
Yeah.
okay, and we can reflect that, but we can also be like namespacey about it because it's not the Flake outputs namespace. It's an options namespace, and we can like do this generic configurations namespace and then go NixOS home manager, and there could, I don't know, be like NixVim. I don't
Yeah.
NixVim has its
As
actually
many as you
NixVim
want.
has its own Flake module by now. I think I don't know if I agree with that design, but whatever. And I don't feel strongly about the namespacing thing.
It's probably just like on the subject of debugging and looking into that stuff, it is probably a little nicer in the REPL just to see only what you want to see instead of all the outputs at once.
Okay. But the defaults, right? The because if it's this way, where so what's the value of these defaults? I think there's a value. I think there's a value to it, especially because these wrapper args, that if we can call them that,
Hmm.
there is no they're not options. So you can't extract them into module and into lower level modules. Some of them are actually alternatives to options, right? Like PKGs.
Yeah.
Uh, you can provide PKGs via an option.
Hmm.
It's probably better to do that. And
Yeah.
system is even
There's a
deprecated.
comment in upstream that specifically says like, "Hey, don't do this.
Hmm.
If you really need to, go for it, but there's options."
Right. And systems wrapper arg is also deprecated. It's
Yep.
supposed to be students host platform, right?
Yeah. Modules is pretty much the only one that I think I would use. There's there's check. That's probably useful to have. And then base modules if you wanted to like omit all the default NixOS modules for like a minimal config. Like there's a couple different ones.
Right. And providing this kind of an additional option set for the defaults is convenience that like replaces something that the user could do with some of their own implementation. Um, they would have to like make an option. They would basically have to do the same kind of the same thing.
Yeah. And that's I mentioned it in my post a little bit is most of the configs that I've seen do that just with a utility function called make system or something.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that make system function, you know, imports all their default modules, sets network host name to like a string that they passed as an argument, does a couple things like that. So that was like for me the main benefit is just you can move that just all into the modules system and it makes it much more flexible than just some random lambda function.
I agree. So, and I also don't. It's not nice to like nest this once more to be like configurations configs, actual configs.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do configurations, right, the defaults and config, like that would kind of, but it is idiomatic. It's like an unfortunate, it's somewhat of an unfortunate problem because one of them is very commonly, very frequently used, like this one,
Hmm.
and another one is less frequently used. It's like probably even just once, if at all. And you have to pay a price of like a dot.
Yeah.
But the alternative is not that much different. Like, what does it matter if the character is a dot or like this?
Yeah. That that's almost the exact thought process I had, and sort of how I landed on the prime is I think I was calling the output like global NixOS configuration args. I just decided to shorten it because less typing.
Yeah. So, as unfortunate as it seems, I kind of want to say there's this idiom in the module system of namespacing. It's like if we consider this a flake parts module, all of its things should live under one option instead of two top level options.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to say configurations dot configs and right and configurations dot defaults. Or I don't know, maybe configurations dot nixos dot configs and configurations dot nixos dot defaults. Again, it kind of it's not, it's less ergonomic. It's more idiomatic. So should we take the somewhat less idiomatic and maybe create a new idiom, kind of trailblaze this configurations and configuration defaults, two top level ones. I think this convenience probably tips the scale here.
Yeah.
It's already kind of
I think
verbose
too
as it
with
is.
yeah, any like idiomatic patterns or anything, or just to get you started, right?
Mm-hmm. So I would, for the sake of, I think um, clarity should probably trump over conciseness, and it should be something like options.configuration defaults. That's my take.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair.
Awesome. So far we have some, I think, conceptual progress, and this will be a, where's the arg prime? This will not be a list, will be just a default module. And all of these will be available both in the in the NixOS and Home Manager modules and in the uh, in this scope, in the defaults
Yeah, and that's
modules.
pretty easy to see too in your bottom pane there.
Mm-hmm.
When I actually construct this, I do like underscore module dot args and pass the output name there. And then within
Where is
the
it?
um probably at the bottom of all these option definitions.
This.
Yeah, right there. And you can see on line 137 there, I literally just have a module there that inherits from the top level module.args because it's a recursive attribute set.
Okay. Can we not do recursive?
Yeah, you could do a let in there.
I would appreciate it. I just another thing to wrap my mind around. It's like recursive.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can get back to constructor.
Mhm.
You said it's um where is it again? This provides the default for it, right? But it's an option that is currently in the submodule of what is this?
That submodule is
Okay,
just the args.
this
Yeah.
the args has an underscore constructor. And it's like
And
an
at the very bottom of the
outlier.
file is where this is called.
And it's an outlier because it won't be this one won't be passed. It's not an arg. It's not a wrapper arg.
Correct. Yeah,
It is the wrapper. Darn it.
exactly.
Oh boy.
So it is like
Okay. It should
I'm
be a
I'm
sibling.
totally with you. It's a bit confusing to have the constructor and the arguments as part of the same attribute set,
Yeah.
but what it allows is you can configure the constructor both through those global arguments and per configuration.
Global arguments. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Let me.
Because like if you wanted
Mhm.
to use Nix packages unstable for all your configurations and just set that as the default, you can just do that through the same
Sure.
global arguments output.
I get it. User should be able to set this as a set the default for this and set the per configuration value for this.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's just like you said, it's icky to have it with the args because it's not the args, it's actually the function that takes these args.
Yeah. And that was again just trying to avoid another level of nesting there. Although if we're not even using the flake outputs,
Uh-huh.
because I had to name these outputs like NixOS configuration args, right? To not collide with the normal configuration. You could almost just have NixOS configurations dot args and dot constructor
There.
because they're not flake outputs, right?
Because they're not so frequently used. Not because they're not like because they're not the configuration modules. The thing that is frequently used, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not so frequently used, then so did we say let's say configure right options dot configurations dot nixos. This is what I want. If I may be blunt, configurations dot nixos name and options okay, so now we have configuration. Yeah, but this kind of so configuration args But now if we don't have a namespace, it's options.configuration constructors. .name, which really sucks.
Yeah, because then you got to keep those name in sync.
Options, like if we disregard ergonomics, it's like this: configurations. Okay, this is no. This is pseudocode. Oh, you know what? Let me do it on one line. Configurations. I can't imagine it on one line. Configurations. I think it should
I think
all
you'd
be
want
nested under
NixOS to
the
be the top level there, right?
class. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll all be, there is configurations dot class, and then we have configs, right?
Oh, because you're still trying to separate that from the global
Yeah, because
stuff.
now
Yeah.
we have default, or just default args. Help me out
Or I
here.
think you just still want default, right? Because you want to be able to set a default constructor.
Right, and then we have defaults or default.
And then those would just both be the same type, right? Like one args attribute and one constructor attribute.
Constructor. And okay, constructor args. Let's call it wrapper args. I don't know, because well, these two are related, right?
Yep.
This is like, I would even suggest. I don't know what do you think, constructor versus wrapper is kind of an implementation detail, but we don't have a name for this.
Yeah.
Evaluator entry function. Maybe your name is good. I don't know. Constructor. How about eval function?
Perfect.
And eval function args. Now, granted, this just kind of, you know what? Hold on. Step back. No, this is I have no problem with this. I'll tell you why. I was confusing in my mind between two different things. We have Flake modules NixOS foo, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I was confused with, because I mean, obviously it's I know very well that these are two different things. This is, but when I was saying that, so configs class, class configs, and then it's actually name, right? This one.
Yeah.
So I was confusing between this one and that one. No, yeah, this one is used everywhere because dendritic, and every file you add, you have this in pretty much every file.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing is not very much not every file. No, only like you have this maybe once per per just once per name.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how you wanna use it. That's I use it just once.
I recently converted from using it multiple times because but I saw that I had a directory for each host, and then each host was like split up into super tiny files. There's no point. I merged them all into one file. I do have a factor.json as well, so there's it's still a directory. So you know what?
That's
How about
actually,
this?
I don't
Mm?
just use it once because
Mm-hmm.
I also, like, write directly. I have, like, a file for my host, and
Mm-hmm.
then I have a file per user per host. So I like to be able to
I
just,
get it. Yeah.
in those user files, extend the host config with any, like, user config.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not doing that yet, but I think that makes sense. As that should be pretty common. So,
Yeah,
what do you think
total
about
personal
this
preference.
stuff here? This design?
Yeah, I think definitely, like, moving it to the, um like, outside of the flake outputs, that's just, like, an objective improvement.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that I'm totally sold on having the, like, configs and defaults as, like, nested under the class. I think I may still prefer having, like, class and class prime, but I don't think that's super important at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Because, like you're saying, you shouldn't really be calling this in all your modules or in, like, your dendritic pattern. You wouldn't be calling this in, like, an application module. This would just be, like, your top level config. So, like, probably you don't need to optimize too much for conciseness.
Right. That's what I'm thinking here. Most of the most of the values that go into these, they don't pass through this option. They pass through flake modules, flake modules.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I do think separating the constructor from the arguments is also a good improvement because I have to filter those arguments right now, and I'm just doing that based on, "Oh, does the, attribute name start with an underscore?" So that's, a little confusing and just extra computation that has to go on, and I think having those separate is definitely clearer.
Awesome. Listen, wife's waiting on me.
Yeah,
Going
I gotta make
to
some dinner too.
some cafe, which is a nice thing to
Ooh,
do.
nice. Have a great time.
Um, Thank you. Let
And
me stop the recording. I think got we made excellent progress. I really appreciate
absolutely.
your contribution to the ecosystem,
Yeah,
not
and thanks
just
again
doing
for
it for
reaching out.
yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty bad at sharing my stuff usually, so I'm glad that, you were able to see it.
Happy to help. I'll stop the recording.